Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Welcome to today's webinar, Understanding Security Roles and Maintaining Your Club and Association Contacts. Before we get started, we'll just go over a little bit of housekeeping. All of your phones and microphones are muted. So if you have any questions, make sure to enter them in the chat window. Devin, one of our ClubExpress team members, is hanging out in the chat, and he will be there to answer all of your questions. So you don't have to wait until the end in order to ask those burning questions. A recording of this webinar and all of our webinars are available on our YouTube channel. You'll also find all of our great tutorials on our YouTube channel as well. So this webinar and all of our upcoming webinars can be found on our ClubExpress calendar. We are working on our schedule for our March webinars, so keep checking our calendar to see what topics we're going to cover. We have a lot of really exciting updates coming to your ClubExpress platform, so stay tuned for our next version announcement and for all of the great things that we're bringing you. Make sure to check out clubexpress.com/calendar. When you register for upcoming webinars in advance, you have the option to enter in questions that you would like to see addressed during the webinar. So if you have anything that you would like to see demonstrated live, or you have additional questions on, just make sure that you enter those into your registration for the webinar. And of course, you'll always receive an email letting you know that a webinar is coming up. As I mentioned, all of our videos are on our YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and search clubexpress.com, you'll find our channel, which includes all of our past webinars and all of our tutorials. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. It's not so that we just get more followers on YouTube. It is so you get notified every time we post a new tutorial or webinar to our channel. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you're notified as soon as we do that. And of course, if you are currently using ClubExpress, and particularly if you're enjoying using ClubExpress, we would love to hear from you. So if you have a moment, go to clubexpress.com/reviews and leave us a review. It helps others make the determination of whether or not ClubExpress is right for them. And of course, we just love to hear how much you're enjoying ClubExpress. So today's topic is going to cover all of the different levels of security and the security roles that you have across your website. We'll talk about how you would grant different levels of access to different members across your site, what it looks like when someone has that specific level of access. And we're also going to talk about creating titles and assigning contacts. So one of the things that tends to happen quite often is when we let administrators know that we have an upcoming webinar, we send every single administrator of any ClubExpress website an email notifying them of the webinar. And we get a lot of feedbacks, from people letting us know that they're no longer with the organization, they're no longer an administrator, and they're not sure why they're still receiving these communications. So we're going to show you how you can make sure that all of your titles and contacts are completely up to date, so you don't have anyone hanging out with access that they shouldn't still have. First up, in our demonstration today, we are going to go over the different types of roles and what they all mean, how you would grant those rights and that access to your members. We are going to move around a lot through different browsers. So I'm going to call out when I have switched logging in and out as, say, an administrator or a coordinator, so that you know what you're looking at when I've switched those logins. So we're going to be logging in as Martin Smith, our administrator. We're going to log in as a handful of other people so you can see what coordinator access looks like and things like that. And then we're also going to talk about configuring and updating your titles and your contacts and how those affect all of your automatic emails, system emails, and anything else that you might be doing across your site. Let's jump right in and let's talk about the types of security roles. First up, you have at the very top level, your site administrators. Now, your website administrator has the most access and the most control over any of the other roles that you have on your site. Generally, the person who is your first administrator is going to be the person who actually signed up for the trial. Now, of course, that can change. They can determine, that they want to pass off those duties to another person. But in general, you always have one administrator. You are, in fact, required to have at least one administrator. Now, you can add more, and we'll go through what that means when you've added additional administrators. The duties and the rights don't get split. It's just that everyone has full access once they're made an administrator. We also have what we call control panel coordinators. Control panel coordinators are those folks who are assigned full access to a specific feature or module on your site. So they have administrative access over one or more specific things that you grant them access to. We're going to go over that as well. Then we have subgroup administrators. Subgroup administrators are essentially an administrator, but only for a specific subgroup. So if you have regions, districts, and chapters, that's the topic for you. Subgroup administrators will have full access like an administrator, but only to the items for their subgroup. So we'll go over a specific example of that in just a moment. Then we have coordinators for a specific custom page or photo album, coordinators of a specific item, like an event contact or a forum moderator or a blog author. So coordinators of a specific item are going to have essentially administrative access, but only over a specific thing, like a blog that they're an author for. But there are some limits to what they can do. So, for example, a forum moderator can't just go in and change the properties of a forum. They can only manage posts on the forum, members of the forum, and we'll talk about that. The sixth level of security on your site would be for members. So if you are familiar with ClubExpress, you know that at the base level, your website has a public side and it has a members only side. So your members logging in with their username and password grants them a specific type of security or access to your site. They're able to see that member-only content that you have so carefully curated. And then, of course, that last and final level would be site visitors, just non-members, members of the general public who are navigating to your site. What can they see? What can they do? And all of that's determined by you. So let's go ahead and switch gears here. I am going to navigate to our demo club. Now, our demo club is something that we use quite often to demonstrate a lot of the features on our site. We have several different demo clubs. We're using the Northwest Balloon Club today. I am already logged in as our favorite administrator, Martin Smith. Martin Smith is a full admin for the Northwest Balloon Club. So when Martin Smith logs in, he sees our link to the control panel. When he navigates to the control panel, he has access to every tab and every feature within that tab. Nothing is off limits to Martin. So when I do things like go in and create an event, or I'm going into the people manager, because Martin is a full website administrator, he has access to, let's say, within the people manager, to every single member record that's listed here. Whereas when we take a look at subgroup administrators in just a moment, you're going to see that subgroup administrators are only going to have access to the people within their subgroup. Now, let's take a look at a couple of other things from Martin's perspective. So we've looked at the control panel. We can see that under every tab, every single item that is active on this site is available to Martin. And as an administrator, Martin is able to then grant rights to other people within his organization. He can grant rights as coordinators, as subgroup administrators, really anything. Once you have an administrative role, that's an additional item that you have at your disposal. So let's take a look, and this is going to take us into a couple of other areas of security. We're going to take a look at how Martin, an administrator, would add in different coordinator roles. And the first way that you can do that is through the configure option within the control panel. Now, if I select configure within any tab, I have a handful of different options, and we have videos that will go over all of the things that you can do within the control panel. Right now, I'm just going to focus on setting up those coordinator roles. When you are in the configure option of your control panel, on the left-hand side, you'll see everything that's been activated within that particular tab on your website. Anything here is going to include your reports, your modules, and your databases. Now, with several of these items, you're going to be able to select the item and you'll see a coordinators tab. Now, not every item within the control panel will allow you to add coordinators. We're going to take a look at a couple of different things here. Let's say, for example, that I'd like to add a coordinator to my photo albums, or maybe I'm asking someone to help me manage my homepage, and I'd like to set up a coordinator for my homepage. You can do that in just a couple of steps: selecting the item, selecting the coordinator tab, and then selecting Add Coordinator. Now, we already have a couple of coordinators set up. I can easily remove any one of those just by clicking that trash can icon. When I add a coordinator, I'm faced with my very familiar member selector, where all I'm doing is searching by first or last name, or pressing the search button, and it reveals a list of all of the members within my organization. Now, in order to identify someone as a coordinator, they must be a member of your organization. We do not allow you to add in non-members within a specific security role. So make sure that, of course, that person is a member of your organization. And then you go ahead and select them and add them as a coordinator. So if I go ahead and we'll select search here, and I select Angela Abernathy, immediately Angela becomes a coordinator and her role is refreshed on her end. So she may have to log out and log back in order for that those rights to refresh for her, but she'll have that relatively immediately. So this is just one very quick way to add a coordinator to a specific module, to a specific report, or to a specific feature. An additional way that you would be able to add coordinators, again, as an administrator, is through the Club tab. Now, we're going to spend a decent amount of time in the Club tab here, so let's all get comfortable. You'll see that in the bottom, we have our setup options, and a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is located in the setup options section of your Club tab. Now, remember, the Club tab may be labeled differently depending on the type of organization that you are. So right now, our Northwest Balloon Club tab is labeled Club, but you have the ability, if you would like, to change that to association, to change that to organization or league. So just note that we are going to be talking about the tab fourth from the left, which for us is labeled the Club tab. Now, I mentioned a lot of talk about administrators and coordinators. We've looked at one way to add coordinators to specific control panel items. Now we're going to take a look at the administrators and coordinators section in the setup panel. Now, this is a quick list of anyone who has access to various items on your site. At the very top, you have administrators. Underneath that, you have your coordinators. Now, we have 4 separate administrators for the Northwest Balloon Club. And we also have a couple of icons next to each one. I can easily add another administrator by clicking Add Administrator, using that member selector in the exact same way that you're used to using it, searching by first or last name, and adding an additional administrator. All of these administrators have the same level of access. They all can see the entire control panel. Now, a couple of these icons on the right-hand side. First, we have our favorites icon, which we'll come back to. And we have our trash can icon, which allows you to delete an administrator. If you only have one administrator, you will not see a delete icon. You are required to have one, and you cannot remove them. If, for example, you are the only administrator of your club and you're looking to retire from that role, you're going to need to add a new administrator before you're able to remove yourself. So keep that in mind. Now, with the favorite option, this is something that we introduced a couple of years ago, and it's a great way to help out folks who might be helping you. So as an administrator, you are likely not doing everything yourself. You have coordinators or other administrators who are helping you out. Now, the way that you would get to a lot of your functions would be through the control panel, using that control panel link that you see at the top right-hand corner of your screen. Or, for example, if I wanted to navigate to the event calendar, maybe I'd have to go through the menu and then, go to the back end using the edit icon. Creating a favorites menu allows you to choose from every single item across your site, databases, backends of different features that we have, and quickly navigate to them using your own personalized favorites menu. This favorites menu is configured per person. So your favorites will be completely different from your coordinator favorites or from other admin favorites. So definitely keep that in mind. If we take a look at the top right-hand corner, we can see our favorites menu right next to our login name. And we can quickly navigate to each one of those items. Now, let's talk about adding coordinators. So we have focused on adding different coordinators. This is another way that you can do that. Now, right now, and by default, your coordinators are always going to be listed with their name, sorted by last name. You have the ability to select that Add Coordinator button at the top, and we're going to go over that in just a moment. But let's talk about what we're seeing here. We're looking at coordinators from the perspective of by name. We can also switch our view to view coordinators by function. That then separates out every single function. You have the ability to view and assign coordinators, and you also have the ability to remove coordinators from that option. So for those of you who are legacy ClubExpress users, you might recall that this icon indicated coordinators in our old control panel. So we've kept some of that with us as we've moved along. So some of those icons may be a little bit familiar to you. Let's go ahead and switch back to viewing our coordinators by member. And we'll take a look at some of the icons that we have here. We still have our favorites icon and we have our remove icon. You are not required to have a coordinator set up for each individual feature or function. So you're able to remove all coordinators from a specific function whenever you'd like to. You don't need to work with them the same way that you need to work with having at least one administrator. Other icons that you'll see here. The first icon is our functions icon. This allows you to see all of the individual items for which Angela might be a coordinator. Next up, we have a copy icon. We're going to talk about copying coordinator rights in just a moment. But first up, let's take a look at the functions for Angela. So this is going to take you to a screen that should look a little bit familiar. It's essentially the control panel separated onto a single page. You have each one of the tabs that are located in your control panel along with each one of the features. And you can think of it as though it's a menu. So when I take a look at the work that Angela is going to be doing, I can say that she's working on the home page. That means that she's probably going to need access to my photos. She'll probably also want access to web graphics. She may want access to a handful of other things, but let's go ahead and start with just those items. So I've just checked off those boxes. I can check or uncheck everything in an entire section if I'd like to. Scroll down and save my changes. And now Angela has access to each of those items. Now, when I add a coordinator, I see the exact same screen. The only difference is at the very top, I have to choose the member that I'm working with, and then I can continue to choose each one of the items that I would like to give Angela access to. Now, let's go back one more screen. We'll talk about copying coordinator rights, and then we'll move on to subgroup administrators. Now, each one of these folks has a copy icon next to them. Copying coordinator rights does a couple of things. It, of course, copies all of the coordinator rights from one person to another. Now, if I select the copy icon next to Angela, I then choose the next member that I'd like to copy Angela's rights to. It's a really important point to note that when you are copying coordinator rights to another person, it's a copy and replace, not a copy and add. So keep in mind that when you are copying Angela's rights to the homepage, to photo albums, to web graphics, when you copy them to another person, it is going to replace whatever rights they had with the rights that Angela has. So if what you want to do is instead add rights, the copy function may not necessarily be for you. It depends on, what's more work, copying a set of rights to a person and then adding in what they want, or just adding in additional rights. So keep that in mind that it's not going to add rights to that person. It's going to replace whatever rights they have with the new rights that you've copied over. So keeping that in mind so that you don't lose access that anyone might have that they need in order to perform their duties with your organization. This is our admin and coordinators page. And I'm going to go back into the control panel and we're going to talk a little bit about subgroup administrators and subgroup coordinators. Now, an administrator and coordinator that you have set up using admins and coordinators or using the configure option is going to have access to that item across your site. So if you are an organization that has subgroups, they will have access from the very top level down. If instead what you want is to give someone admin access over a specific subgroup, you want to go to a different section. Now, for organizations that do not have subgroups, stay tuned because we're going to round back out and continue talking about roles that may affect every organization. So just bear with us for a moment. We are going to navigate to, again, we're in the club tab in the setup section under organization data. Now, this is a screen where you would set up all of the different all of the different levels that you have within your organization. Each of these has an expand icon. We will not be going through setting up additional levels within your organization or additional chapters. What we're going to do instead is talk about what happens when I click on a specific organization level. I have a handful of options. I can edit those. I can add an administrator. I can edit membership fees for that. We're going to focus on administrators. So if I select administrators, I can see that same familiar screen looks very similar to our coordinator screen, where I'm just choosing an administrator from within my organization. Again, I'm choosing from members within my organization and adding them as an administrator. Now, you'll see here, you'll see here that Jenny Cho is a subgroup administrator. So that means that when Jenny Cho signs in, she is going to have access to all of the features within her organization just for her subgroup. So if I take a look at where I have designated Jenny as an administrator, this is for New South Wales. And we can see that there are several different regions or districts there are several different districts within New South Wales. So that means that anyone who is a member of any one of these additional chapters, they're going to come under New South Wales and she'll be able to access their information in the control panel. So we've taken a look at a couple of different ways to add in administrators and coordinators. We took a look at how we can use that configure option to go ahead and add in a coordinator. And again, it's as simple as choosing the coordinator tab, adding a coordinator. We'll choose a lucky member from our database and selecting our select option. Now, we've talked about subgroup administrators, but let's talk about subgroup coordinators. It's not really an official role that we can set up within either our organization data tab or within administrators and coordinators. Subgroup administrators come into play when you are adding a coordinator to a handful of different modules on your site. For example, within committees, within our document library, different places where when you set something up, you can designate whether that's going to be for your entire organization or for a specific subgroup. So you're likely familiar that when you set up a committee, you choose the subgroup for that committee. So when you are setting up coordinators, you can say, I would like Colleen to be a coordinator for committees, but I only want Colleen to be a coordinator for a specific set of committees for her subgroup. So when you're adding in coordinators, if your organization has subgroups, you may see the option to select an organization group. That's your indicator that you would be potentially granting someone more limited coordinator rights over that function. I am going to instead select the top level. I want Colleen to be coordinator for all of our committees. I'll go ahead and close. And now let's take a look at what some of this is going to look like from the perspective of those members. So what I'm going to do is I've switched browsers. Go ahead and pull that over here. I haven't logged out as Martin Smith. I've just added a new browser, so we don't have to go back and forth very often. What I'm going to do is I'm going to first log in as Colleen Carter. And let's take a look at what we think might be a little bit different here. I'm looking at my same exact website. And at the top right-hand corner, Colleen has a link to the control panel. Now, Colleen was not listed in our list of administrators, but she still has a link to the control panel. But when I navigate to the control panel, I'm seeing a very limited view. Colleen is a control panel coordinator. She only has access to a handful of specific functions. So Colleen has access to only the functions that she was granted access to and only the tabs that she was granted access to, in addition to the support tab. Now let's talk about a handful of different things from Colleen's perspective. Colleen did not have to change her login information. It's the same login that has been associated with her member profile the entire time she's been with the organization. All that's different is that she logs in, she gets a link to the control panel. In the People tab, all she has access to is committees. That's the only thing that we've given her access to. In the Communications tab, she already had access to forums, so we left that there. And then, of course, anyone who has access to the control panel will also have access to our Support tab. Something else that you might notice once you start assigning administrative and coordinator roles across your site is that the folks that you are assigning those roles to will get a very nice email from ClubExpress welcoming them and letting them know all of the different ways that we're here to support you. So pointing out our online help system, which anyone can access, even your members, outlining the options available in the support tab, letting them know where our webinars and tutorials are located. So we want to make sure that we help you help your coordinators. And we just let them know these are the ways that ClubExpress is here to help you. And these are the ways that you can maybe look for help on your own. So just keep in mind that we won't just leave you out in the wind. We do try to give you as much support as we can, even for people who might be coordinators or volunteers with your organization. Now, we've taken a look at what Colleen has access to. She has access to the back end of both committees and forums. And we're going to talk about access to forums and how that might be different from being a forum moderator in just a moment. But next, what I want to do is I want to show you what Jenny Cho now has access to, because Jenny Cho has been set up as a subgroup administrator. So I'm going to log out of Colleen's account. And instead, I'm going to sign in as Jenny Cho. Jenny Cho was assigned those subgroup administrator rights. Now, when I sign in as Jenny, we also see that control panel option. If I select that, we actually see far more tabs because Jenny has access to everything, but just for her subgroup. So if I select the people manager, for example, and I go ahead and select search without entering in any search criteria. So if you are familiar with the people manager, you know that by default, your search is going to be performed for members that are active and expired, every member in your database. So let's take a look at what we have here. We're only finding 7. Now, if I very quickly switch back to the Northwest Balloon Club, logged in as Martin Smith, and I take a look at our people manager, I have 294 total members that are active and expired. So I'm going to switch right back to Jenny Cho, and you'll see that we only have 7. And that's because each one of these 7 are the only 7 that are part of the subgroup that she's been assigned to. So again, keeping in mind, not only is Jenny only going to have access to her members within the people manager, but it's the same for transactions as well. So if we take a look at the money tab and we take a look at our transactions search, she's only going to have access to transactions and payments that are for members within that subgroup. So when we talk about subgroups, also keep in mind that it is from the level that Jenny has been designated down. So when Jenny is designated as a region administrator, she'll have access to all of the districts and chapters within that region. And that's how subgroup administrators work. It's also how those subgroup coordinator functions would work as well. When you are assigned a subgroup level of access, you are assigned from your level down. Let's take a look at where we are so far. We've looked at administrative rights. We've seen that that grants us access to everything on the control panel. It also gives us the ability to assign rights to other folks in our organization. We looked at control panel coordinators. Colleen was a control panel coordinator. She had very specific access to a couple of modules on the site. We looked at subgroup administrators. Jenny Cho was a subgroup administrator, and she had access to everything in the control panel, but only for her subgroup. Next up, we're going to take a look at setting up coordinators for more specific items on your site. For that, I am going to navigate right back to the Northwest Balloon Club, and I am signed in as Martin Smith again. So we'll see here, if I hover over my login name, I'm signed back in as Martin Smith. And let's take a look at assigning coordinator rights to specific items, particularly in the website tab. We're going to talk about custom pages and photo albums. Now, these photo albums are different from your photo library. These are photo albums that you create that can be member facing, and you can also give members the ability to add their own photo albums. So it's the module, not where you would store photos that you might use across your site. Now, let's navigate to custom pages, which is in the admin section of our website tab. We'll select search to show all of our custom pages. And on the right-hand side in the maintain column, you see that familiar coordinator icon that we saw on our administrators and coordinators page. This icon is how you would add in a coordinator for a specific custom page. Now, if I go back to the control panel and I use that configure option, and I add a coordinator for custom pages, it's going to grant them coordinator access to every single custom page. But if you're working with volunteers and you only want to give them limited access to a couple of pages that they're working on, or if it is someone in your organization who perhaps works more with the events module or the volunteering module, but they want to create a custom page to advertise your large event or your large conference, you might give them access to just one custom page. Giving someone access to a specific custom page is the same way that you would give someone access to a specific item of any kind. I'm selecting the coordinator icon, and then I'm using that add coordinator option where I'm choosing a member from my database and setting up a specific person to have access to this particular custom page. So I can choose one particular person. I'm going to choose Colleen. So Colleen has now been given access to one custom page. I can go in and add access to for Colleen for several custom pages. It doesn't just need to be one. There isn't a limit. So now Colleen is the coordinator for a couple of specific custom pages, not every custom page. And let's take a look at the same exact feature, but just within photo albums. So if I go back into the control panel and I navigate to photo albums, again, I'll go ahead and select search, and it'll bring up every single photo album that I have. And again, I can use that coordinator icon to add in coordinator access for a specific person for a specific photo album. Now, a couple of things to note. They're, of course, not going to be able to add in any additional items. They won't be able to add in, let's say, an additional custom page. So when you're granting someone limited access like this, they won't have access to any of the administrative features that you would have access to, adding a new custom page or adding a photo album. They'll only have access to those specific items that you've given them access to. Now, I am going to very quickly switch back to my Northwest Balloon Club. I'm logged in as Jenny Cho here, but I'm actually going to log in as Colleen, and we'll see how her rights have changed. So Colleen still has access to the control panel, and now she has an additional tab, the website tab. And it looks like she has access to custom pages and photo albums, but really when we go into custom pages, you're only going to see the two custom pages that Colleen has access to. And you're also missing a lot of the functions that an administrator would normally have here. So we're missing a handful of icons in our maintain column. Colleen does not have the rights or the ability to delete a custom page. She also does not have the rights or ability to add custom pages. You are noticing that we're missing a lot of those buttons at the very top of our screen. We can't add categories. We can't add custom pages. All we can do is work with the items that we're working with now, namely editing versions and creating additional versions. you'll see that Colleen doesn't even have the configure icon. Colleen can't change anything about the page. She can't change the page name. She can't change who the page is visible to. She can't handle any of that. All she can do is work on her custom page. So that's a great way to assign someone, again, more limited rights over an item, but still allowing you as an admin or a full website administrator, a webmaster, to pawn off some of those duties onto other folks within your organization. Now, the next set of rights that we're going to talk about, and again, I am going to go right back into our Northwest Balloon Club, logged in as Martin Smith, full administrator. And we're going to talk about a couple of different coordinators that you can set up within specific features on your site. And then we're going to look and see what that looks like from their perspective. Now, the first stop that we're going to make is to our event calendar. And I'm going to navigate to the calendar on our website menu. And then I'm going to hover over my flyout menu on the right-hand side and select the edit icon. The edit icon is something that is visible to every administrator and a coordinator who has access to that feature. And it allows you to quickly go to the back end of that module. So I'm going to select the edit icon and select search to look through all of my events. Now, one of the features that we just released, it's part of our next release, but it is available to you now, would be the ability to edit the rights that an event contact has for a specific event. So let's take a look at that. I am going to focus on our potluck luncheon that I've highlighted on the screen here. And I'm going to select the edit icon, which takes me to the back end of the event. And I'm going to select the edit icon next to event contacts. Now, event contacts are a special type of coordinator. It's kind of the same thing as assigning a coordinator to a specific item like a custom page or photo album. Couple of things to note. Previously, when an event contact was assigned for an event, you would automatically be granting them admin access to that specific event, not through the entire event calendar, but to that event itself. Now, there were some things that they wouldn't be able to do. For example, when you assign an event contact, they would have access to the emailing feature, but they wouldn't be able to send out an event email without having access to blast emailing. So we put in a couple of fail safes there. So if you wanted to give someone the ability to manage registrations, but you didn't want them to have the ability to start emailing members, you could, again, keep that a little bit separate from them. Now, we have given you the ability to add an event contact and determine whether or not they should have admin rights over the event. So if I take a look at a few of the event contacts that I've set up already, Colleen has been assigned as an event contact, but she does not have admin rights. Now, the reason that you might do that is there might be people who should be contacts for the event, but had nothing to do with the setup, are not managing registrations. They are not someone that you would necessarily go to if you're having trouble. They have a very specific role. Maybe their contact information needs to be listed, but they don't need to have access to anything on the back end. And then, of course, you have an event contact who is responsible for setting up the entire event, managing it. They're the workhorse of the event, and they absolutely need to have admin rights. So now you get to make that distinction for yourself. So Colleen does not have admin rights, but Manny Diaz does. Manny Diaz is the event contact who's been managing this whole thing. And Manny is going to have a lot of other rights that we're going to take a look at. So we're not going to switch just yet to take a look at what the difference might be for each of them. We're going to move on, and then we're going to take a look at, again, Colleen and Manny's rights to some of these items. So keep in mind, and we'll go back and review this, that Colleen has no admin rights to the event and Manny does. Now, let's take a look and move on to some of our other features where this might be a similar case. I'm going to navigate to my communications tab. And in the website module section, I'm going to select forums. Now, within forums, you, as an administrator, have access to everything. A coordinator for forums would also have access to everything. And when I say everything, I mean the ability to add a forum, the ability to configure forums, the ability to manage existing forums. All of that is included. They would also have the ability to manage flagged messages, anything like that. But someone who is a forum moderator will only have specific abilities. They won't be able to change the properties of a forum. They won't be able to add a new forum. They will only be able to manage the messages on that forum and manage the members of that forum. So banning members or moderating other members, moderating flagged messages, things like that. A forum moderator has more limited access to forums than a coordinator would or an administrator. Now, when I'm taking a look at forums from an administrative perspective, I choose a forum. And on the right-hand side, I can select the members icon to not just view a list of all of the members in the forum, but also view all of the special members in that forum as well. Special members would be folks who might be moderated or banned, or the moderator of the forum. So if I take a look at this particular forum, I can see that Manny Diaz has been assigned moderator status. My search is set to only show those special members. If I show all of my members and select search again, I can see a full list of every member that's part of this forum, and I can quickly see my moderator. Now, when we take a look at Manny Diaz and his profile, you'll end up seeing exactly what his access looks like, what he can do and what he can't do. So if you're keeping track, when we were looking at custom pages, there were a lot of features, even though Colleen was a coordinator for the custom page, a lot of features that weren't accessible to her. The last stop that we'll make for coordinator rights would be our blog authors. So again, I'm still logged in as Martin Smith. We're still taking a look at the control panel, same communications tab, website modules, and we're going to talk about blog authors. Blog authors, really a lot of the same features that we've been talking about with our event contacts and our forum moderators. They're going to have access to perform their specific tasks, which would be writing a blog post, but nothing else. They're not going to be able to change the policy, add a new blog. They will only be able to add posts and edit posts for the blogs that they have been assigned authorship to. So if I take a look at my first blog listed, All About Gear, and again, I'm selecting that icon that's going to show me a list of all of the authors for that blog. I can see that we have Martin and Manny. I can select the Add Author icon, choose a member from my database, and add them as an author to that blog. Right now, we're focused on Manny being an author to the blog. And again, when Manny signs in, you're going to see that he has limited access to these items. So when you're giving someone access to an event or a forum or a blog, you are essentially telling them, I want you to perform these specific tasks and don't touch anything else. But in a much nicer way, by just limiting the access that they have to that particular feature. So what I want to do is, again, change my browser. Now I am signed in as Colleen Carter. I'm still signed in as Colleen. What I want to do is quickly show you that one event that Colleen was listed as an event contact for, but she was not given admin rights. So if I take a look at that potluck luncheon on our event calendar and I navigate to it from Colleen's perspective, she has the same options that you'd see from any other member, registering for it, adding it to her calendar. Now, if I go ahead and sign in as Manny Diaz, I'm going to log out of Colleen's account and I am going to sign in as Manny Diaz. Now, Manny again has our control panel, but you'll see that he has some really specific rights that he has been given. Now, he already had maybe access to some custom pages, access to text messaging, but you'll see that even though we made him an event contact, he doesn't have events within his website tab. Even though we made him a forum moderator and a blog author, he does not have those items within his control panel. The way that those specific coordinators would reach that item would be navigating to it from the menu. So if I select calendar and I scroll down, select my potluck luncheon, again, I'm logged in as Manny Diaz. Manny was actually given admin rights to that particular event. So when he finds the event on the calendar, that's when he gets our admin options and he can navigate to the back end of the event. Now, under my members only menu, that's where I would navigate to blogs and forums. I also have the ability to navigate to my blogs from my member profile as Manny. So if I select Manny's profile and I scroll down, I can see that I have access to a handful of different things. I can add in my blog posts under website functions. Now, if I am going to my post manager as a blog author, you'll see that I really don't have much that I can do. I can take a look at the subscribers. I can add a post, but I'm not able to add a blog. I'm not able to change a lot of the features of this particular blog. So keeping in mind that when you assign someone those specific rights and you're giving them instructions as to how they can access that in the future, you're going to need to tell them to navigate to those specific items the same way that they're used to navigating to them as a member. The last feature that we'll look at would be our forums. Now, when Manny Diaz, a forum moderator, navigates to forums, he can see all of the forums that he would have access to, that he has the ability to view based on their visibility settings. He'll also see some flags at the very top if messages have been reported to him, if messages have been flagged, or if he is supposed to be moderating messages before they get posted on the site, he'll see a notification at the top of the screen as well. So keeping in mind, again, all that Manny has access to is what we've given him access to. Now, Manny has moderator access to, does anybody know a good blank? So this is a forum that we've set up for our members. And you'll see that in addition to seeing the name of the forum, I can also see the visibility setting for the forum and whether or not it's active, but I don't see that for any other forum. That's because I'm logged in as a moderator for that forum. So I can see some additional details, but I can't see that for anything else that I'm not a moderator for. Now, that covers Manny's access. Now, Manny, again, was granted coordinator access to a very specific handful of items, a specific blog, specific forum, specific event. And so his access is even more limited than any of the ones that we've taken a look at previously. Now, the next level down would be your regular members. Now, regular members, when they sign into your site, they're going to see a couple of different things. I am going to go ahead and sign in as myself. I'm going to log in as a regular member. Now, I do not have any specific rights. I don't have any control panel access. I do not have any level of access aside from my membership. So if I hover over my name, I can see that I can navigate to my profile. I'm navigating the website the exact way that my administrators intended for me to navigate it. So keeping in mind that when your members log in, they're going to see that member-only side of your site. They're going to see all of the features and the functions that you've designated are for members only. They also have some semblance of control over their own data and what they're able to do across your site. Now, if I take a look at my member profile, I can go in and edit my own contact information. I also have the ability to edit my standard member directory listing. Now, if you're familiar at all with our member directory, you'll know that there are different visibility settings that you can set up within the directory. As an administrator, you can say, I want my members to be able to choose how much information is shown about them. But you can also set a default. So by default, if no one touches their visibility settings, you might decide to show everything. But as a member, if you have the ability to, and if your administrator has allowed you to, you can go in and say, maybe I want to show everything, or I don't even want to be in the directory. I don't want anything about me listed in the directory. Just don't list me there. So giving your members that little extra step of taking their privacy a little more seriously and giving them the ability to limit what they have shown in the directory. They, of course, also have the ability to control through their member profile the level of communication that they receive from the organization. If you have forums activated, they can change their subscriptions, how many emails they're getting, what those emails will look like. They also have the ability to remove themselves from not only your organization, but from your database entirely. So if I select my privacy settings, I have the ability to decide that I don't want to receive blast emails any further, cancel the membership, or the right to be forgotten, which is one of our security features where it allows members to say that they want to be removed completely from your database. And then the last feature that we'll take a look at would be just perspective from your website visitors that are members of the general public. So if I log out, I'm taking a look at the website from the perspective of a non-member. Now, a non-member is going to really only be able to see what you have given them access to. So when you set up a new module and you're saying that this is available to all website visitors and you put it on your public menu, that's when your members of the general public have the ability to access that. Right now, I'm limited to just a handful of things, and you can even see that my menu has changed because the system is recognizing that I am just a regular website visitor. I haven't crossed that threshold into being a member by signing in. So I'm going to log right back in as Martin Smith, and we are going to quickly go through the remaining items on our agenda today. Namely, we're going to talk about setting up your contacts and titles. And for that, we are going to navigate to our control panel back into our club tab. Now, contacts and titles are configured in two separate places on your site. First, you have to tell us what titles are held within your organization. Then, in Contact Us, you have to assign the title to a specific person. So first up, taking a look at our titles. When you add titles or you configure titles, by selecting the Add Title button, you're entering in the title that you call it within your own organization and an email address associated with that title. We're going to come back to the email address in just a moment. But first, let's talk about that title. That title can be anything that you'd like it to be. Whatever title is within your organization, that's the title that you would display there, because that title is also going to be used across your site on your Contact Us page. Now, the person holding this title serves as what role? You'll notice that we only have 5 roles, but I'm sure there are plenty of additional roles that you might have in your organization, even within the Northwest Balloon Club. We have a safety officer, we have an intern, we have a lot of different things. We really, as ClubExpress, almost only care about these titles. And not that we don't care about you as people, but we care about those titles specifically because those are the titles that are going to pair with a lot of the functions on your site. For example, we need to know who your treasurer is or your financial VP, because that treasury information that treasurer's information might be included in system emails, in confirmation emails that your members are getting about payments being received. So we do need to know who that is. We need to know who your membership director is so that we can notify them when a new member signs up, when they renew. And so we can insert their information in the system email that gets sent out when a new member signs up. So keeping in mind that really the main reason why you would want to check these boxes off is to let the system know this is a title that needs to be paid attention to, and whoever is associated with this title is our treasurer, and that person should be receiving these communications. Now, if we take a look at a couple of other items on our list of titles here, let's take a look at our president. We edit our president. I have the ability to change the title, email address, and I can change the distinction. Now, the email address listed here is an email address that would be associated with the title, not with the person. So as an organization, if you have email addresses like president@myclub.org or treasurer@myclub, those are email addresses that remain with the title, no matter who is sitting in that seat. If that's the email address that you intend to use going forward, make sure you enter that in, and we'll talk about where that comes into play next. So once we've added all of the titles, now keep in mind that these titles are not just used for contacts, they're also used to designate maybe a committee chairperson or a president of a committee when you're adding and managing different committees on your site. But for now, we're just going to focus on our contacts. Now, our Contact Us page is compiled with lists of the titles that you've added and the members associated with those titles. And again, it must be a member within your organization. Now, if I go ahead and let's say edit an existing title, vice president, for example, at the very top, all I'm doing is choosing my member selector and changing the person associated with this title. You can do that for every single person on your site as soon as your elections are done. So that's going to change the contact. I can also change their title. Maybe what I don't need to change is the contact. Maybe Billy just changed roles and I'd like to assign Billy as treasurer. I also determine whether or not they're shown on the Contact Us page, what information is shown and to whom, and which email is being used. So With the member's email, that's going to be the email that the member entered when they signed up for your organization. It's the email address in their member profile. Alternatively, you can use the email address that's associated with the title that's been assigned to that person. So if you have those email addresses associated with the title, not with the person, you're going to want to make sure that you check off that box. Otherwise, you will be using that person's personal email potentially for a lot of club business, which might be okay depending on how your organization has been set up. But also keep in mind that that person who is that treasurer or membership director, they're getting emails to their club email address for them as a member. So they may also, have those emails getting lost in the shuffle. So consider setting up a different email address for those specific titles. And then the last thing that we'll very quickly go over within our control panel would be that there are a couple of places to double check if you are concerned about your contacts maybe not receiving emails for specific items. For example, your membership director or your treasurer. Under the Money tab, in the setup section under Money Options, you have the ability to notify your treasurer every time a payment is made. Now, if you're a large organization, you have a lot of payments going back and forth, that may not be a great option for you. But consider that if you have a treasurer who absolutely would like to see every single payment come through, know that that's an option for you. You have to make sure that you have someone associated with that treasurer role, though. Otherwise, those emails just get lost in the ether. And then under People, you have the same type of feature available under People Options for your membership director. So if we scroll all the way to the bottom of People Options, I can see that I have the ability to notify my membership director never, or when someone renews or someone signs up for a new membership. So again, they may not be emails that you want as a membership director, but in order for those to even work, you have to make sure that you set up those contacts and titles. Devin, you probably didn't think I could go so long talking about different security roles, but how are we doing on questions?
Yeah, we've got a few. I'm impressed with your lung capacity. Yeah, one of the questions we got is there a difference between a non-member that comes to the site for the first time and a non-member that has their information already in the system?
That's a great question. So it depends on what they're doing on your site. If a non-member is navigating to your website just to browse, there's no difference whatsoever. If a non-member is instead, let me go ahead and switch browsers here. If a non-member is instead visiting your site to do something like sign up for an event. So if I go ahead and select my potluck luncheon, and again, I'm logged out, I'm not logged in as a member, and I go ahead and register. As a non-member, when I reach something like an event or signing up for a volunteering opportunity, anything where I want to do something specific on your site, I'm faced with a couple of different things. I can log in. So if I'm actually a member and I've forgotten to log in, here's my indicator. I can also decide that I just want to sign up for this event as a non-member because I'm not a member. And I enter in my information that you see in this form here. But at the very top, have you previously registered for an event or are you on the mailing list? As a non-member, I can search for myself. If I know that I've signed up for an event before, or I know that I've signed up for the mailing list, or I've signed up for a volunteering opportunity, I do have the ability to find myself. So my look might be slightly different, but essentially a non-member likely won't notice any major difference, whether or not they've done something on your site before.
Okay, and then one of the other questions we got was, is there a report that shows who has access to the control panel?
Another great question. Of course there is. So I'm still logged in my other browser as Martin Smith, and I can navigate to the control panel under the website tab. And the report that you want to focus on would be your website security report. Under website security, you can view a list of everyone who has access to functions or security by member. So if I want to take a look at all of my functions, I'll go ahead and select next, and I will just run this as PDF. It's going to list out all of the individual functions and every person assigned to them. And I can also run the same report by person. So if you have somebody who is maybe leaving your organization, maybe they're moving and they aren't going to be part of your organization any longer, you're looking to replace them, it's a really great way to just double check, what did they have access to and what do I need to worry about now? It's also really wise to run this report if you are a large organization with a lot of cooks in the kitchen. Make sure you run this report on a semi-regular basis, depending on how often people are changing hats or how often you're getting new volunteers, just to make sure that the people who have access to your site are the people who should have access to your site.
And then last one I have is, do custom page coordinators have access? And I guess this applies to the homepage as well. Do they have access to versions of that page from before they were made coordinators?
That's a great question and something that we should be able to check. So I am going to log in as Colleen Carter and let's see what her access looks like. So under Colleen's control panel, she had access to a handful of custom pages. Let's see if she has access to every version. And she does. So to answer that question, yes, a custom page coordinator will have access to all of the versions for that specific custom page.
And I think that's all we had.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for taking the time to join us. Today was a pretty hefty topic. Hopefully it was really valuable for everyone here. Make sure you check out those security roles, play around with them, double check your contacts, double check who has access to things on your site. Maybe just a little spring cleaning of the security roles and the coordinators that you might have on your site. So thank you again. A recording of this will be available on our YouTube channel within a few days. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next webinar. Bye, everyone.